recently, what I've noticed is...
See a G-Wagon like it's...
For me, what I found was when we started growing our business,
it was a case that I would...
Discovering the nomadic lifestyle, we explore Marbella's opulence against the UK's norm. Delving into business dynamics, we emphasize efficiency and networking in London. This is the Grappling Growth.
We're all grappling with something. Each and every entrepreneur, business owner, and leader experiences growing pains, no matter where they are on their business journey. On Grappling Growth, we discuss the challenges we consistently face in striving for more, sharing strategies, ideas, and thoughts on how to grapple with growth. We're building a platform where you can join us sharing your challenges and successes alike, whilst growing. So, you coming along?
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Grappling Growth podcast with myself, Joe Testouri, and my co-host, Erald Krasniqi. Today, we are not joined by one guest, we are joined by two. We're joined by Matt and Alex, who are the founders of Be Seen Content. Now, this collaboration came about from a few conversations of just mutual respect, watching each other on social media, and absolutely we thought for our audience, it'd be great to have both of these gentlemen jump on our podcast today and speak a little bit about their experience, because they're in an interesting position right now. They have traveled, they've left their hometowns in Wales, and they are in sunny Marbella, Spain, which is really, really cool for them. So just to kind of delve into things, guys, we spoke very briefly before the call when we jumped on. I guess my first question for you is, why Marbella?
So Marbella, I'm not sure if either of you have ever been, but if you are someone who is very much into like self-improvement, holistic self-improvement, then it is like the ideal place. The atmosphere here is like second to none. I find in the UK there's this like crabs in a bucket sort of atmosphere. Marbella is the exact opposite. If you walk around like any part of Marbella for more than 5 minutes, you get like a real sense of fulfillment. You feel as if everyone is trying to push each other up and bring out the best of each other. Whereas in the UK, it feels as if things are sort of trying to pull you back. And obviously you've got the physical attributes like the sun, the gyms, the beach, and things like that. But for me, what really sold it to me was the fact that it's got such a good atmosphere. There's a real focus here on sort of health, well-being, self-improvement, self-development. And that is something that I love. I'm very much into self-improvement myself. I love to surround myself with people who are into the same sort of thing. And Marbella just ticked every single box for me.
Do you have anything to
I'll say
add?
for you, Alex.
I'll add to that. No, it's actually not. I mean, I didn't really want to move to Marbella, I'll be honest. It just seemed like a little bit too relaxed and slow. I'd never been, so I obviously had a strange perspective of it. I was interested in Dubai. I wanted to move to Dubai really, really badly. But again, I've never been to Dubai. But I wanted to go there. That was my plan for this year, to live in Dubai. And then our business mentor moved to Marbella and then kept telling us about how great it was. And he's actually one of our clients. We do his content. And he wanted us to come out and film some stuff for him. So he flew us out here to film for him. And then I fell in love with the place, honestly. Like, my whole idea of it had changed. I like cities. I like London. I lived there for a while. But since coming to Marbella, I like the relaxed atmosphere, and the energy is different here. I can't explain it. It's just, this is definitely the place for me now, I think.
Have you been?
I've not been to Marbella. We've got a friend that was out there recently. And I've not been to Dubai, but one of my friends also actually moved out there recently as well. I think those have been two very popular places. Joe, have you been to Marbella?
I have not, no.
No. The thing I see it.
Go on.
What's that?
When you come here, you'll see that everyone is like on their laptops, like sort of a digital nomad lifestyle. If you go to like Marbella, which is the main gym in Marbella, you go to the cafe, you can see like a whole host of people just on their laptops working. It seems to be like a big hub for sort of people like ourselves who own agencies, who have the location freedom. Everyone sort of culminates in Marbella or Dubai, obviously for different reasons.
Yeah, I think recently what I've noticed is there's 3 locations that I see a lot of nomads moving to, and it is Marbella being one of them, mainly for the Europeans, like the British entrepreneurs, because it's so close by, it's cheap, and it has all the benefits of the weather and like you said, Matt, the entrepreneurial spirit moving around, a bunch of other influencers and business people that have moved there. Dubai is another big one, also because of the tax benefits. I'm guessing a lot of people actually go domiciled in Dubai for the tax benefits for their businesses. And then it's Bali, but Bali is slightly less accessible. Time zones are a bit tough. I know you were in Bali, Joe, and found that quite difficult. But what do you think it is that like drives people? I don't say drives people away from the UK, but drives them away from their hometowns. You mentioned the crabs in the bucket mentality. I definitely understand that. But is there more to it that you think that like, is it that atmosphere being around other entrepreneurs that you just don't get in like your hometowns in Wales?
Where I'm from, no. Well, I say where we're from, no. In Marbella, you see a G-Wagon like it's Vauxhall Corsa. Whereas if you go to the UK, you see a Corsa driving down the street, you see loads of them. But when you come here, it's like whenever I have like a bar day, so I'm in sales, right? So whenever I have a bar day, maybe I don't close someone, maybe it didn't go as planned. If I take a 10-minute stroll down the port and I see a yacht, it just reminds me that everything I want is actually possible. Whereas in the UK, where we're from, if I take a 5-minute stroll, I'll see like Iceland, Home Bargains. It's a bit different. The vibe is a bit different. So I think that is what pulls it here. And I think in the UK, everyone is so content with working in McDonald's, working in Tesco, and I've actually worked in Tesco, so I can see the sort of mentality that is in those sort of places, and it just doesn't fill me with.
Matt, a question to you there though. You've mentioned you're from Wales. Do you think that's a case of where you're from, or have you generalised that consensus across the whole of the UK? Because Alex, you've mentioned that you used to live in London. Would you say, how would you compare the similarities between Marbella and London, or Marbella against where you're from in Wales?
I mean, those are 2 very different comparisons, in my opinion. Firstly, I'll just add to what Matthew said. For me, I completely agree with Matthew in the sense that it's very depressing. There doesn't seem to be much ambition. And for me, what I found was when we started growing our business, we realized that we were actually probably, we even thought, we're like, right, out of everyone we know, who's actually doing things, who's successful? And we came to the conclusion that we were 2 of the most successful people in the local area. But we were small fish. We've just started. I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to be a big fish when I've just started my entrepreneurial journey. I want to be surrounded by winners and people who are years ahead of me. I don't want to be surrounded by people who I'm already sort of on par with or have, grown past. That was a big thing for me when it came to the local area. London is different because there are people excelling in London. I think the comparison between Marbella and London is it's different because there's a lot of hostility, I think, in a city like London, more selfishness, a lot of people who are rushing places. It just gives me an anxious, stressed feeling all the time, like, oh, where do I need to be next? And the days drag out for like 15 hours because you're spending a lot of it just rushing around. It doesn't seem to be, it's not a hub for productivity in my view. It just stresses me out too much. Whereas in Marbella, you're surrounded by people who are just relaxed, but yet you still get more done. It's hard to explain. I know that probably isn't very helpful of a comparison, but that's how I feel about it.
No, I think that juxtaposition makes sense because you see people, and I've done this myself. So I've worked in Bali and Thailand and sunnier destinations, so to speak. But you do feel that when you're in these better zones, so to speak, it feels like it's easier to work at times. And I think that the point, and this was a big thing, is to, and it'll be my 5-year anniversary, is to when I quit working in the city in May, which I'm proud of. With that, though,
that's awesome.
It was a case that I would If I wanted to be as efficient as possible, I would be up by 6:15 in the morning. I would be at the gym. I would have to leave at 7:30 in the morning, 7:45 to get to work, and I'd work in Canary Wharf. Start my rolling banking at 8:30. I'd get home by 6:30. And the way how I looked at it, I thought, with those extra 2 hours a day, what else could I do with that opportunity cost? Could I train? Could I work on my business? Could I just spend more time with family and friends? And I think there's a massive price that's paid for being consumed in the vacuum of London.
The thing about London as a hub, like the networking opportunities that you have there are massive, but post the events in 2020, I'll say, without naming what it was, a lot of people actually, the networks kind of fractured to a point, and because the office died, essentially it was like there was actually less opportunity to sort of reconvene with entrepreneurs in London because no one was really going to the office anymore. So like in-person functions were less prevalent, and in general the city felt like it died a little bit. So obviously everybody started doing, the thing that happened in 2020 also kickstarted the work from anywhere kind of culture. So that pushed me further afield. And when the agency was doing really well, when I was hitting like the 20K months, I was like, am I going to spend like $3,000 a month on rent in London, or go somewhere which probably fuels me and my business better for a lower cost of living and still reap all the benefits of what I had at the time? And I think like that brings me to my question for you two, moving away from, and I know you mentioned your mentor and this move, for other entrepreneurs, like in the whole grappling growth kind of mindset, do you think a change of environment is a good thing for someone that's maybe struggling to break through or doesn't feel like where they are is serving them?
I would say
What would you say?
absolutely. Absolutely. I think if you move and change your environment, you have an opportunity to reinvent yourself. So when I was in the UK, I was very guilty of procrastination and not executing on the tasks that I know I should. And I've noticed that ever since, moving over here, I've had it's like a new lease of life. Procrastination isn't an issue for me anymore. I get what I need to do done, and you just get the opportunity to reinvent yourself as a person. Because in the UK, you might label yourself as someone who is struggling and you can't break through this plateau, but then you might move away and then you might identify yourself as someone who is on the way to breaking through and exploding their agency. And I find that reinventing yourself does lead to a lot of growth, I find, personally.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that
Yeah,
same for you, Alex.
Yeah. I think if you think of the whole idea of like think and grow rich, right? That for me is a big thing. Being able to actually like manifest your dreams into reality. Like if all you're surrounded by is tolerating a mediocre life, how are you possibly like? I'm not strong enough to isolate myself and my dreams from that. I am going to be affected in some way. My energy is going to be penetrated in some way by what I'm surrounded by. So all I had to do was move myself to somewhere where it's the complete opposite. It is ambition, it is drive, it is riches and lots of wealth and success. So now it's so much easier for me to just look around, and then all of a sudden we're twice as successful as we were when we were in the UK. Now, that doesn't go for everywhere in the UK. It doesn't go for every person. I personally feel like I'm not strong enough to be able to completely resist everything that's going on around me. I think it sneaks its way into my thinking, and that's what I feel about it. I think environment is everything, and anybody wanting to level up their life, if you have the freedom and the luxury to move somewhere, just do it. Because if you're in a small town in the UK, there is a chance that you're not seeing what you can possibly become,
I'm curious, what did your families think about you moving away?
Yeah, my family wanted me to move away, actually. They liked the fact that I moved, mainly because obviously my parents know me very well. I actually lived with them up until I left, so I didn't live on my own in the UK. I lived with my parents. It's partly why I wanted to move, because it was a very claustrophobic environment with them. And they obviously didn't have my new way of thinking, my entrepreneurial mindset. They just worked their 9-to-5 jobs. They didn't understand it, so it was difficult. But I think my mother, more than my father, really saw what I wanted and really saw me trying but also failing because of the environment that I kept slipping into, because of the laziness that it kind of fosters sometimes. And she wanted me to go. She's like, this is going to be a really good thing for you, because I know the sort of person you want to be, the sort of person you are, but you're not really fulfilling what you can do because, you know, the environment isn't allowing that. And I know that sounds like a bit of an excuse, and it probably is, but my mother definitely saw that there was a lot more that I could do if I put myself in the right environment. My father was happy for me. Both of them are a little bit upset that I was going, but overall, I think they encouraged it.
Of course. So I just, my father's like not in the picture. So it's just me, my mother, and my sister. My mother was obviously, like, from an actual mother's point of view, they're going to be upset. You know, the waterworks, the crying, all of that came out. But my mother was really, really ecstatic, and I think I needed it, because obviously when you're like trying to work hard on a business, you're so like psychologically committed to the business, and you can't see anything else outside the business. Like you don't water the plants outside of the business. You're just focused on growing the business. And I was like clashing with my mother all the time. I was trying to force my opinion on her, like, you know, like freedom and breaking out the matrix and stuff like that, which is wrong, because she's had a job forever, and it wasn't fair on me, but really supportive, actually. And I think that because I've created a lot of distance from my family, I can appreciate them a lot more. I'm not sure if you have the same experience, but when you live with your family, you can appreciate sort of everything they do for you and what they actually are. And then when you move away, you're reminded of how good they actually are to you. And that's something I've had. I find that moving away hasn't been hard at all. I don't really sort of miss my family, but sort of miss having that comfort. And I think the space between me being in the UK and me being here has actually benefited me a lot. But they were really supportive. They didn't actually think I was going to do it, though. I think that there was seeds of doubt in their mind that I was just saying I'm going to move away. And my granddad actually, before I left, he was telling me, I told him I was leaving and stuff like that. Like, he didn't believe me. He didn't believe that I was actually coming, and he was like, "Oh, I've known so many people move to Spain, and their parents have had to buy their flight home and stuff like that." Basically saying that I was gonna fail. He didn't believe that I was gonna come out there and do it. But then the night before I actually left, like, I went to see him, and he was actually like in tears that I was leaving, and he was like gutted to see me go, which was quite hard, but. At that moment, I think something flipped, and he actually realised, like, I am actually leaving, and that I am actually going down this path in life. I'm not just saying that I'm moving to Spain and I'm going to have my ticket home. I'm actually doing it. So I think it was overall a positive sort of experience.
Yeah, that's incredible. Just to touch on that as well, Matt, I think with so much outside pressure, it can be tough to, like, I know if people are saying, like, "Oh, you're going to go there and we're going to have to buy your flight home," and that kind of. I don't want to call it like a lack of belief, but I think a lot of people are pretty siloed in their mentality. And I say this for my family, and a lot of people's families probably have this, where it's like, you know, outrageous. It might seem outrageous to like have that kind of belief system, but where does for both of you, like the self-belief to make the move despite detractors come in? How did you build that? Was it something that you've always had? Has it been something that you've been working on, or, you know, how has that come about?
I personally wouldn't say that I've always believed in myself. I'd say that my self-belief sometimes has been on the floor, and I thought, I can't do this and things like that. But then I always look at it from, if someone else can do it, like, why can't I? Like, if I see all those yachts in Marbella, like I touched on before, someone else has got a yacht sitting in a harbour in Marbella. Why can't I do that? They're just another human. They've got the same function as me. They've got a brain. They've got 2 arms, 2 legs. The only difference is that their knowledge and their skill set is a lot more developed than mine. That's the only difference. And in terms of like outside factors, like, you know, like I just touched on my grandfather, I just learned to accept that your family, no matter how much you love them, like I don't know your personal circumstances with your family, I honestly can't share, but my mother worked, my sister worked, grandfather retired worked. You've got to accept that no matter what you see and what you consume and what you believe, they have been raised to work the 9 to 5 and to not think like this their entire life. Like in their lifetime, there's been the concept of a digital nomad didn't even exist. Yeah. The concept of Wi-Fi money didn't even exist. So it's like completely alien to them. So I just accepted that no matter what I do between now and years down the line, they're not going to know what I'm doing. They're not going to accept it. They're not going to have an understanding of it. The only way to prove to them that what I do is good is by becoming so successful that I can literally say to them, like, you don't have to work anymore. And then they'll have an acceptance that what I do is good and I'm actually doing something with my life as opposed to just sitting around on my laptop, in their opinion, just doing nothing.
Yeah, I think this is important to realize for a lot of people that it is very new what we're doing, and that's probably why it's seen as so risky and a bit unusual, right? That you can sit at home and make more money than our parents have had the ability to, because the availability of the internet and the fact that you can make so much money without having to go physically outside and, physically labor or build a company from scratch the way it used to be. That's actually something
people associate sort of making money from the internet or receipt with like a scam. Like if you mention money and the internet in the same sentence, a lot of people who aren't in tune with how the world works today, they'll associate that with, oh, you're getting scammed. So another example would be when I told my mother about my business mentor. I have a very open relationship with my mum, so I like to share like a lot of information with them. That might be not the best move, but when I told her about my business mentorship, she said, "Oh, you're choosing the easy route. You haven't even got a bank loan yet." I'm like, I don't need a bank loan for an agency. It's like I don't really need that. And they were really apprehensive about me getting myself involved in like scams and schemes and things like that. So there's definitely missing pieces of information between them, but I can't blame them for that. I mean, they don't know. Like you said, it's very new. It's only really sort of exploded since the 2020 incident, and you can't hold that against them. I don't believe.
Yeah, there's always a new age of information, and 100 years ago it was oil, and then it was automobiles, and then it just consistently changes. And I think a lot of it is about getting ahead of the wave, so to speak, and figuring out when you're kind of sowing your seeds, so to speak. And with you both, so I think that there's a hereditary systemic effect. I know Erald with his family, my family, when I told my parents that, I think I didn't even tell them that I was quitting my job. I think I quit and then said, by the way, I quit today. And to be fair, they were pretty supportive, but I imagine there was a bit of that apprehension. And Alex, you touched upon something early, which I felt. It is very easy to fall into a trap. And I love the UK and I don't want to lombard it, but it's easy to fall into a trap where you're comfortable at home. And I think what you've both done, and myself traveling, when you, and this is the way how I try to envision things right now in life, is you're on this very comfortable island and you've started swimming away from it, and you can't go back to this island, and all you can see is the horizon, and you're just hoping and guiding faith and belief. And this is where I think a lot of entrepreneurs are different to people working in jobs. And I don't want to make this a massive comparison, but it's having that belief of not even knowing what's going to happen. Because for all we know, Erald, your agency could fail. Gents, your agency could fail. Yeah. But for me, I don't see it as failure. I see it as one door is closed, something else is going to blossom. Where do you think that mindset came from to be in an environment where you've both spoken and saying that you were kind of some of the most successful people in your towns, to actually saying, actually, we're going to do this and we want to push our aspirations?
That was, in my opinion, our business mentor that did that to us. I am inherently quite negative and pessimistic. I worry, I overthink, and I'm not sure I would have done this had our business mentor not been quite possibly the most positive, optimistic person I've ever met. So I think the self-belief was forced into me at that point, and I've kind of caught up and started to believe in myself since being in Marbella. But even today, I'm not convinced. I'm still thinking, I don't know if this will work. Will it really work? I mean, we put one foot in front of the other regardless, because what other option is there? Let it fail? At least try, but it could fail. And I think every day I'm like, what if? And I think sometimes negatively about that. So my self-belief definitely has room for improvement. But the more we do, the more validation I feel. I'm starting to think, okay, I can do this. I definitely can. But that's only caught up since I've been out here in Marbella. I was very stressed and worried about everything. But then again, I get that from my mother. She is quite possibly the most stressed out person I've ever seen in my life. And I lived with her. And since, I know it sounds terrible, but since not being around her all the time, I'm not like that. So it just shows, I didn't have the strength to kind of resist the other people and their influence on me.
Mm-hmm.
But now I feel like, having been forced into this situation, that's improved massively. So I didn't have like a mindset that brought me out here. I just thought, right, fuck it, let's do it. And our business mentor really pushed me and pushed both of us into this. I probably wouldn't have done it without Matthew either, because it would have been all me on my own. So we came out here together. Like, the risk was reduced, I think.
Nice.
I just see it
I don't know if that
as-
was an answer to that. That was a bit of a long-winded answer.
I just see it as, like Alex, you said there about, what if it fails and things like that. I like to turn that on its head and think, like, what if it doesn't fail? What if it succeeds? Like, what if you become more successful than you could imagine? Like, there's no harm in thinking like that. I mean, I've had periods of time where I've overthought about things. So what if it can fail? But that doesn't move me forward. That pulls me back slightly. I'd rather have the thought of, what if this goes really well? What if it succeeds? Because then I think you're programming your brain to act in a positive way, as opposed to seeding doubt into your brain. And then you might have a few actions that help that doubt grow. And then you might, what you think might happen. Then if you do the opposite with the positive, you might start acting in a way that makes it work. And then next thing you know, months down the line, you've got what you thought was possible just by having a positive mindset as opposed to a negative mindset.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that kind of thinking applies to jobs as well. Like, what if you get fired? What if you get made redundant? Do you know what I mean? Like, the same risk applies. It's just in a very different scenario. And I still think that's the wrong way to think about it. If you've got a job, you should be thinking, what if I can do more to push myself forward? What if I can influence the company in a way that makes a difference? Because the same risk does apply. Anything could happen. Stock market changes, your company changes direction. I've had people that are incredibly talented working at large Fortune 500s that get taken off the salary sheet because they don't want to do that department anymore. I know, Joe, you were at a large company beforehand, and it was like, what if you just get a nasty boss that treats you badly one day? It's not. There's the risks are always there, no matter what. So I think that mentality.
There's so many risks in life. Like, every day is not guaranteed. You could have not wake up one morning. There's so much risk in life that I think that looking at be aware of the negative risks. Obviously, like, I'm aware that my agency could fail, but I'm not going to think about that, because I have a belief in myself that if I put my heart into this and put as much effort as I know I can, failure isn't an option in my opinion. I don't consider that as an option, because I've learned now that if you actually put the work in and you put the effort in, you're not going to fail. Like, you don't get punished for working as hard as you possibly can. You get rewarded, in my experience anyway. But I know that there's a period of time where you can work incredibly hard and not see results. But I believe that those times are like, when you like pulling an arrow back on a bow, just drawing tension, and then next thing you know, you just get this like massive surge of success. I found that success and failure, if they happen, they all come in one. They're not sporadic. It's either all good or bad. I'm not sure if you've had that experience, but that's something that I felt so far.
That's that has got me thinking. And generally, I think of business to an extent in growth and maintain cycles, that you see your business grow at once and then you look to maintain it. And equally, not even just growing and maintaining, but this is something that's the unsexy side of things, but things do go wrong. You've got an employee who doesn't do something right and they lose a double retainer, something that's happened with me, and you're gutted. And all you need is things just to go right. And this is something that Erald knows a lot about. But 2 years ago, I was scammed for significant sums of money, multiple 5 figures. And at the time, I called up everyone on my team and said, guys, we need to do our best to retain all of these clients. And I had an account manager who had a double client who covered at least 2 people's salary, and they churned that month. And I just said to him, look, I just need you to do your best to keep these clients in. End of the month, they churned, and any other month it would have been okay. And even that month it was fine. We made it work. But as you've said, success and failure, it does feel like they come like London buses. You wait ages for one, and then multiple come that goes to the same destination. I'm really curious about the dynamic between the two of you. So just as an observation, Alex, it feels to me that you're kind of the person who, as you've said, is more pessimistic, more negative. Matt, you're like, yes, we're going to get this done. It feels like a yin and yang, where you're balancing each other out. How does the operation work with the two of you in the business?
Yeah, it's definitely like that. I mean, in terms of our roles, I'm very much on the back end. You know, I do the client fulfillment, the sort of business operations guy. Matthew's the client facing, the one that talks to the clients, sort of nurtures prospects and leads and stuff like that. So in terms of our roles, Matthew's very much more like excited and sort of the more extroverted social one. I'm very much like data driven. So I suppose it makes more sense that we're kind of that way. But yeah, Matthew definitely talks to me in a sort of, it doesn't matter, because I'm very much like, but these numbers suggest that this will happen or this won't happen. Like I'm sometimes so numbers driven. I'm like, well, if we look at, you know, the sales data, what about, like, if we continue with this rate, then we won't get to where we want to get to, and we need to change this and that. And that is probably not the best way to discuss things, because I need sort of data to back everything up. I'm like in a spreadsheet looking at the percentages and stuff. So when they don't line up, I do get pessimistic. But Matthew then will be like, it's fine, we'll make it work. And then we do. But it wasn't based on the numbers. It was just belief and pushing and working harder. And that's definitely the way we work. Sort of Matthew will be like, don't worry about it, it's fine, we'll make it work. And then we do. But I'm definitely the one that needs sort of to calm down sometimes and just have some belief. But you've got that right. We definitely are like that. I don't know if Matthew sees it some other way.
I think I see it exactly the same, to be honest with you. Like, I know that Alex is very analytical and data-driven. I work with humans and I work with people. And in my belief, statistics and humans sometimes don't go hand in hand. Like sometimes you get, how do I put this? Like, sometimes a person can defy your expectation of a certain statistic working out. So, for instance, if you had 10 sales calls and you didn't close 8 of them. Now, the data suggests that you're not going to close, but then you might meet someone who you get on really well with, you have a really good solution for them, and they're so enthralled by your personality and your product that they buy instantly. So I think everything can change at the drop of a hat, especially when you're involved with people, because I've seen people change in the past without no warning. All the data suggests that they're going to act this way, and all the history suggests they're going to act this way. But then they act a completely different way. So I think anything can change at any moment of time, which I don't get stressed about, because I know that if I can control the situation as much as I can, I'll be okay. I know that's Alex's nightmare, but
it's just different people.
Matt, how do you think Alex pulls you back a little? Not pulls you back, but he balances you. So it seems to me that you're very much, and I think you and I are alike there. And sometimes having someone who turns around and says, actually, hang on a second, mate, instead of doing this, let's maybe put 70% of our investment into this or effort into this and hold back a little bit? Because I'm sure you always need that person who gives you that balance in any relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's good. I think the way I look at it is I'm gonna do like a sprint, but I could have no awareness of what direction I need to sprint into. I think that the role Alex has is sort of pulling me back, changing my direction, and then I sprint down that direction, as opposed to sprinting down the wrong way. I think it is good to have like Alex around with the data, because there's been certain occasions where I've given my effort into one thing and it's not been the correct thing. But then Alex has said, hold on, look at the data, you should try this. And then I've seen a lot of success with going 100 miles an hour of that. So yeah, I agree. I think that it is handy to have someone like that pulling you back and refocusing and maybe recentering you from time to time.
So I'm going to ask you both now a very direct and slightly, it could be a vulnerable question.
Here we go.
Together as business partners, what's been your biggest failure to date?
Biggest failure.
I tell you what, I've got a good one. Instead, it felt in the past as if me and Alex it was going against each other. We were working against each other. It was like we were like trying to destroy each other, as opposed to working in synergy and bring each other up. So it'd be a competition of who's the most productive, and then whoever isn't the most productive gets like put down. That isn't a way to run a business. If you're in a partnership with someone, you should be bringing each other up. You shouldn't be trying to put the other one down and then trying to get back on top and doing it like that. That, to me, is my biggest challenge that I've faced, is when we've been sort of competing in an egotistical sense, as opposed to bringing each other up.
Self-sabotaging.
Yeah, I suppose I'd agree, because I don't think we've had anything that big that's sort of changed the nature of the business. We've had some clients churn, as you say, like that happens though when you run an agency. That's not really a big failure. I've learned to accept that is part of the process and we learn from it. But yeah, I probably agree. I think biggest sort of, if you look at it as a failure, it was our failure to work together. It was like two individuals, because as you can probably tell by speaking to us, we have very, very different ways of thinking, very different methodologies about things. So the biggest challenge we faced was trying to align them. How do we align when Matthew's doesn't want to look at the numbers? He wants to go full steam ahead. And I need someone like that, because I don't do that. You know, I'd have no business if it wasn't somebody like Matthew in it. But then again, I need to be there to make sure the foundation is there when the client comes in. So I think it's so difficult, because I've never had to do this with someone else before. It's the first time we've started a business, first time I've run anything with somebody else. And I'm very much, I think this is probably me more than Matthew. I'm very much like, I like to be in control. I like to manage things myself. I'm a bit of a control freak. I need everything done my way. And the biggest challenge was not being like that with Matthew, because he's my business partner. He's not my employee. Really aligning and making sure that we work well together, as opposed to not working well together in the sense that I'm telling Matthew what to do or Matthew's telling me what not to do. And yeah, it was that was a big challenge getting over that. I think moving to Marbella helped, actually, because we're in a good environment now. It's impossible to be like that.
And how did
communication as well?
Did you sit down and have a conversation, or did it naturally, organically shift?
I think we had multiple conversations about it, and it was something that we needed to address before sort of moving out here, because we didn't have much, like, we had communication, but it was like, you know, WhatsApp texting. There wasn't like, we had one meeting a week, and the communication wasn't as good as it should have been. And I found that after we sort of ironed out any creases that we had before moving out here and any sort of issues we had within the business to each other, I found that since moving out here and living together, there's been a lot of synergy, and we've actually worked in tandem with each other because we've had better communication. If we have any issues with like any part of the business, we can just voice them immediately. And then the speed at which we address things is a lot faster than in the UK, which allows us obviously to grow a lot more.
That's pertinent. That's pertinent to success. And I've seen that several times, that you can see weeks drift based on communication that's being made. And if you have touch points that are, it's just ping balling once every day compared to just getting stuff done in a much more seamless fashion, you can move mountains far, far quicker. Gents, we have a tradition on this podcast, which is we take questions from the internet. Now, both of you run a content agency. So this is a bit of a golden nugget for whoever's listening. And we want to try and think of a question as personable to you, but as valuable to our audience. So this is a question from a fellow entrepreneur. So it reads, how do you go about growing a personal brand from scratch?
It's a good question.
So for context, this is someone who wants to grow their personal brand. They want to naturally generate leads for their business. It doesn't say what business they are running, but let's just take that they want to run this because they're running an online digital business and they're looking to generate more clients. They want to be seen as an authority. What would you guys go about to help?
I'll go first on this one. I think that the best way to build a personal brand is to just be authentic. Like, just be yourself. A lot of the problems with the internet occur when someone acts a certain way, but then portrays a different side of themselves in reality. I think the best way to grow a personal brand is literally just post your life as raw as you can. Talk about the success you have, the failures you have, as authentic as you can, and just be yourself, because no one can mimic your personal brand because you're the only version of yourself. If you look at someone like, let's just bring Andrew Tate for an example. Like, no one can imitate that because there is only one of him on this earth. It's the same way there's only one of each of us. We're the only versions of ourselves. So if you just be yourself, no one can imitate your personal brand, and it's going to be as authentic and as trust building as it can be. I know Alex is chomping at the bit to answer, so I'll let him go.
No, I agree. I completely agree. However, if you are a business owner, people often misunderstand the whole idea behind personal brand. They think it's just posting your personal life. And that is important because you need to develop trust and loyalty with the people that you want to target. But how do you generate leads when you're posting your personal life but not actually talking about you and your business and presenting yourself and your expertise? So there's a little bit of a sort of strategy that I follow. So it usually takes a few months to get to the point where you're starting to post personal stuff, because what you need to do first is show people that you know what you're talking about. Prove to people you're an expert in your field, because they need to see you as an authority within your niche before they're even going to hand over any money. No one's going to buy from you regardless of what you post if they don't think you know what you're talking about. So the first step is just to post as much free value as possible. That will build your expertise and people will see you as an expert in that field. Don't be concerned about the fact that your whole page might be dedicated to the skill you have, because you're going to have to be niche, very, very niche when you begin. I know there's people like Gary Vee, Alex Hormozy that talk about you are the niche. That works when you have a following, right? Because you can start posting like the whiskey you like to drink, what sports you enjoy. But that's way too vague when you're starting out. So I assume the person asking this question wants to grow their personal brand because they don't have a big personal brand. And if that is the case, the first 30 days is daily reels, posting free value to your ideal client. Who do you want to target? What do they struggle with? Solve those problems with a daily 60-second reel. And then from month 2, you can start adding in specific calls to action, directing people to your product or service. Start showing them what you have to offer them. And then from month 3 onwards, you can start maybe doing a YouTube channel, podcast clips on your page of you on people's podcasts, or do your own podcast, and then build more of your personal life on a more intimate level. That's how I would do it. Definitely don't spend the majority of your time posting photos of your personal life if you are a business owner who is trying to sell a skill to someone. It's very, very important. People misunderstand the whole you are the niche thing. It's definitely something you shouldn't take too deeply when you're starting out. So I hope that answers the question. It's a very open-ended question, so I hope I was specific enough of an answer.
Yeah,
for sure.
As someone, and Matt, this is how you and I connected, but I'm someone who's building my own personal brand right now, and I think there's naturally, as with anything, you've got your Alex Hormozzi's, Gary V's. There are levels to what's being said. If an entrepreneur who's 35, who has an extensive network, has made millions of pounds, then turns around and starts posting content, he's on a level that's higher than probably all of us here. And I think what I see a lot, because I get people who reach out to me, I get guys who are 19 years old, have no experience whatsoever in business, try to come in from a place of authority and say, this is what you need to do. And you can just look at them and just say, hey, step back a little bit, show your knowledge through what you've learned, and document and be very transparent and say, hey, this is what I've learned. And I know Alex Hormozzi goes big on now, be one of zero, so create content that can't ever be created again, that's personal to you. And I think there's a level of, and there's a way of conveying your message to people which doesn't come across as quite tyrannical or hierarchical, that I'm this and I'm here. People see through that. And that's why I think what you've said, Matt, the authenticity part comes in. I think that comes full circle to the pod. Erald, is there anything you want to add?
Before we end off, Alex, Matt, where can people find you? What else would you like the viewers to know about? The short form kings. What's the message that you want to put out there to anyone listening?
So I know that a lot of people, like you said at the start of the podcast, are looking to sort of grow their business and take the leap and stuff like that. I think a piece of advice that I would give is just start. Just the quicker you start, the quicker you fail, the quicker you learn, the quicker you win. It literally is all about starting. And at the end of the day, there's no real consequence to starting and failing the business, because if you're still alive and you're still breathing, you can do it again. Now, in terms of where people can find me, my Instagram is Math Williams. I'm very active on there. I was talking to people, always posting and things like that. And I do have a YouTube channel, which is the same. It's the same. The same using, where that is where I sort of document my journey as a digital nomad, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about freedom, very passionate about helping other people see that you can actually be free in your life, and you can have the option to live a life that you want, not the life that's conditioned into you.
Yeah, I'll just add to that with regards to our business and content advice and stuff like that. Maybe you guys can put the link to my community down below, and then people can join that. It's free. You can ask questions directly to me, and there's courses in there. There's free value in there. So anything you need to know about short form or YouTube or anything like that, any sort of content, you can find it there. There's free information there, and you can talk to me directly and ask me any questions.
Yeah, I appreciate the both of you. I've really enjoyed this podcast. It's been good to connect with like-minded people, have a good conversation, and I feel energized for the day. I've come away from this podcast feeling very positive. So thank you both for that.